The morning of Friday, January 25th, 2019, started just like any other for Liz and Sergio Barraza in their quiet Texas neighborhood. Liz woke up with a sense of excitement for the weekend ahead. She and Sergio had planned a 2-day yard sale at their home on Cedar Walk Drive. The goal was to make some extra money for a very special trip. In just 2 days, they were supposed to leave for Orlando, Florida to celebrate their 5th wedding anniversary. Their big plan was to visit the wizarding world of Harry Potter at Universal Studios. Liz was a huge Harry Potter fan, and this trip was a dream come true for her. She had already packed her suitcase, and she had even hand-painted a special pair of Harry Potter-themed shoes to wear on the adventure. Before the trip, though, they wanted to clear out some old things and raise a bit of cash. So that Friday morning, Liz got up early. She even made a quick run to Starbucks to get a coffee a little after 6 a.m. to start her day. By 6:15 a.m., she and Sergio were outside in their front yard, moving tables and boxes, setting up all the items they wanted to sell. It was still dark and quiet on their street. The air was cool. Sergio was getting ready to leave for his job, and Liz was going to run the sale by herself until he got home. She arranged toys, books, household items, and clothes on the tables. She put a cash box out with some change in it. Everything was normal. It was the beginning of a routine day. At 6:48 a.m., Sergio kissed his wife goodbye, told her he loved her, and drove off to work. Liz was now alone in her driveway, sipping her coffee, making final adjustments to the sale items. She had no reason to feel afraid. This was her own home, in a safe, friendly subdivision where nothing bad ever happened. As she stood there in the early morning light, she was completely unaware that her movements had been watched for hours. She didn't know that a vehicle had been circling her neighborhood since 2 a.m. She had no idea that a plan, set in motion by someone for reasons she would never understand, was about to reach its final, devastating moment, right there on her own driveway. At 6:52 a.m., just 4 minutes after Sergio drove away, a vehicle turned onto Cedar Walk Drive. It was a black Nissan Frontier pickup truck. The driver already knew exactly where they were going. Security cameras from a neighbor's house captured what happened next. The black truck drove past the Barraza home. Then it slowed down. It didn't stop right away. Instead, it continued to the end of the quiet cul-de-sac. There, it performed a slow, deliberate 3-point turn. The truck then drove back up the street and pulled in behind Liz's own car, which was parked in the driveway. The engine was still running. The driver's side door opened. A single person stepped out onto the pavement. The video quality was grainy, but the figure was clear enough. The figure appeared to have long, dark hair. Then the figure's right arm came up. In their hand was a gun. The gun fired. The first shot was immediate. It struck Liz in the side of her neck. The force of it spun her around or knocked her back. The sound echoed against the houses on the quiet street. Then 2 more shots rang out in quick succession. Pop, pop. These bullets hit her in the chest. The impact was brutal and at close range. Liz fell to the concrete of her driveway. She was now on the ground, gravely wounded. The shooter did not run away. They took a couple of steps forward, now standing directly over Liz. He then raised the gun one more time, aimed carefully, and fired a 4th, final shot. It was a killing shot, meant to ensure she would not survive. The act was cold and left no room for doubt. The shooter then lowered their arm, turned their back on Liz, and began to jog, not a frantic run, but a controlled, brisk pace, back to the driver's side of the black Nissan truck. The vehicle immediately pulled forward, driving away down Cedar Walk Drive. It disappeared from the view of the neighbor's security camera. The whole attack was shockingly fast and efficient. It was also silent, apart from the gunshots. There were no shouts nor screams from Liz after the first shot. On the driveway, Liz lay motionless. The yard sale items sat untouched. The first calls to 911 came within moments. 3 separate neighbors had heard the shots. Police and ambulances were dispatched immediately. But in those first minutes, Liz Barraza was alone on the cold concrete, her life bleeding away just feet from her front door, from the home she had shared with her husband. The Harris County Sheriff's deputies arrived quickly. What they found was a confusing and horrifying scene. There was no sign of a robbery. The cash box for the yard sale was still there, full of money. Nothing was missing. There were no shell casings on the ground. This told the investigators the shooter likely used a revolver. That choice made the scene cleaner and left less evidence. The deputies secured the area and called for a medical helicopter. Liz was rushed to Memorial Hermann Hospital in Houston, the same hospital where she used to volunteer in her stormtrooper costume to cheer up sick children. She was placed in the shock trauma intensive care unit. Doctors worked to save her, but the wounds were too severe. The bullets had caused catastrophic damage. Her family was called. Her husband, Sergio, who had just arrived at his workplace, got the devastating news and raced to the hospital. Her parents, Bob and Rosemary Newell, and her brother, Robert, rushed to be by her side. They held on to hope through the night and into the next day, but there was no recovery possible. On Saturday, January 26th at 1:40 p.m., Elizabeth Barraza was pronounced dead. Back in the Tomball neighborhood, detectives began the painstaking work. They collected the security video from the neighbor's house. When they watched it, they were stunned by what they saw. The footage showed the entire murder from start to finish. The whole event looked professional, like a planned execution. The lead detective on the case would later tell reporters that it was clearly a targeted attack. This was not a random act of violence. Someone had wanted Liz Barraza dead. The big question, the question that would haunt this case for years, was simply, why? Who would do this to a woman known only for her kindness? With no obvious suspect, detectives began digging into every detail of Liz and Sergio's life, looking for a motive. They talked to friends, family, and coworkers. Everyone said the same thing. Liz was universally loved. She had no conflict with anyone. Her marriage to Sergio was happy. There were no signs of affairs, no secret debts, no hidden online arguments. The yard sale itself offered a clue. It wasn't advertised in the newspaper or online. Only a small circle of people knew about it. Some coworkers, close friends, and their parents. Liz had put up just 2 physical signs at the entrances to the neighborhood the night before. This meant the killer either saw one of those signs that morning, or, more likely, already knew Liz would be outside. The security footage from other houses provided the next crucial piece. The black Nissan Frontier was seen driving through the neighborhood as early as 2 a.m., hours before the sun came up. Then, around 6:30 a.m., it was parked in the lot of the nearby Goddard School, waiting. It entered the subdivision for the final time at 6:47 a.m., just 1 minute before Sergio left for work. This timeline was not a coincidence. It was a schedule. The killer was watching, waiting specifically for Sergio to leave the house, ensuring Liz would be alone and vulnerable. As days turned into weeks, police focused on finding that specific truck. They announced it was a black 2013 or newer Nissan Frontier Pro 4X, a model with special roof rails and badging. They checked rental companies and reviewed hundreds of similar vehicles in the area. Every lead came up empty. The truck seemed to have vanished. With no vehicle and no motive, the investigation slowed down. The case was growing cold, and the family's fear was turning into desperate frustration. The public's response was a mixture of heartbreak and intense speculation. Liz's story spread online, and true crime communities began dissecting every known detail. The grainy video of the shooter was analyzed frame by frame. Some people argued the killer's build and movements looked like a woman. Others thought it was a man in a disguise. The most persistent and painful theory for the family involved Sergio. In the absence of another answer, online sleuths turned their attention to the husband. They questioned why he left for work just minutes before the attack. They speculated about his life insurance, his remarriage a few years later, and his demeanor in interviews. Sergio was aware of this suspicion. In a 2023 interview, he addressed it directly, saying, "I am aware that people think I had something to do with it. I did not. I loved my wife." He explained that he and his current wife, who he met a year after Liz's death, had both been fully cooperative, taking polygraph tests to clear their names. The police never named Sergio as a suspect. For Liz's parents, Bob and Rosemary Newell, the online noise was a distracting agony. They chose a different path: public pressure. They held a candlelight vigil in the driveway exactly 1 week after the murder. Over 100 people came. Many held glowing lightsabers instead of candles, a powerful tribute to their daughter's spirit. This vigil began a yearly tradition. On each anniversary, the family and friends gathered, ensuring Liz was not forgotten and reminding the world that her killer was still free. They also worked to increase the reward money, hoping a larger sum would tempt someone with a guilty conscience to finally speak. A major break in the case, or at least the new piece of evidence meant to shake something loose, came on the 2nd anniversary of the murder. The Harris County Sheriff's Office released audio from the doorbell camera on the Barraza home itself. This was different from the neighbor's silent video. This audio let the public hear the final moments of Liz Barraza's life. They hoped the stark, intimate horror of the recording would have an impact. They wanted it to weigh on the conscience of anyone who might be protecting the killer. They believed someone, somewhere, knew who was in that truck. For the Newell family, hearing their daughter's last living words made public was another layer of pain, but they supported the release if it could help find her killer. The public reaction was one of renewed outrage and sadness, but no clear suspect emerged from the shadows. The killer remained a ghost in the recording, a voice that never spoke. Today, the murder of Elizabeth Barraza remains an open and active cold case. The Harris County Sheriff's Office still assigns detectives to it, and they state they receive periodic tips. The physical evidence is preserved. The reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction has grown to $50,000, funded by over 100 donors who refuse to let this story fade away. For Liz's family, life is divided into a before and an after. Her father, Bob Newell, speaks with a determined grief, often reminding the media that a coward changed their lives forever. Her mother, Rosemary, has described the unending pain of losing a child to a senseless, unresolved crime. They find small comfort in knowing Liz's final act was one of generosity. Her donated organs saved the lives of 4 strangers. Sergio Barraza sold the house on Cedar Walk Drive. He could not live where his wife was killed. He has tried to rebuild his life, though it is forever shadowed by that morning and by the unanswered questions that follow him. The central mystery endures because the foundation of the crime makes no sense. Liz Barraza presented no reason for anyone to want her dead, yet someone invested considerable planning and took a great risk to kill her. The black Nissan Frontier has never been publicly found. The person in the long coat and boots has never been identified. Every year on January 25th, the community holds a vigil with lightsabers glowing in the Texas night, a symbol of a light that was extinguished too soon. Until someone speaks, the person who walked up that driveway owns the only answer, and they have taken it with them into silence. May her gentle soul rest in peace, and we hope her killer is found and brought to justice. Thank you all for your time. I will be seeing you on our next episode.